Hello, welcome to video number 12, Introduction to Access Database. This is an introduction to database video, and I have listed what we will learn in this video right here. In this video, we will define the database. We will see the examples of database. We will compare access to Excel. We will also learn the access objects, which are tables, forms, queries, and reports. We will also learn how to save and undo in Access. And finally, we will see the different views of each access object. Here is also a picture of the database that we will create. In this introduction video to Access Database, I have the notes in PowerPoint, and these notes will be provided to you in our class website. Here is a picture of how our finished database will look like, and the finished database can also be found in our People website. And I will briefly open our People website. From our People website, you will click on the Access section here to get to the Access part of this class. And right here, you cannot see the link to the video because I'm recording this video right now. The notes, once I finish recording the video, the notes will be provided here. And as I said, these will be PowerPoint notes for Access. I have also provided to you here the Stuffed Animals database. This is the database that we will create in our next 3 videos. And this database here, it shows how our finished database file will look like. I will now go back to our PowerPoint notes. Now, if I advance to my next slide, we see that Access is a database, which is a collection of related tables, and it is organized in a way that will allow access and retrieval and use of that data. So what does Access do? Access stores raw data. It stores data in small parts. So for example, instead of storing the address right here as one part, it stores that in 4 pieces of data. As you can see right here, Access will store the address in a different piece, the city, the state, and the zip code, all in 4 different pieces. The next thing that Access does, it creates useful information from raw data to help make decisions. In this slide here, I have provided to you the examples of databases. For example, Highline will store raw data about students and instructors. And in that raw data, it will contain the ID, the name, the email, the date of birth, and the addresses. And it will use this to create useful information. And the useful information that I might create from this data is the GPA for business students or the GPA for students in a particular class. It will also create useful information for the list of students, the names and the emails for a particular class. And in this way, we as instructors, we can be able to get the students' names and emails for our particular classes. Highline can also use the raw data to create a list of all the students that have applied for graduation, or they can also create a graduation list for all the students that have graduated from Highline. The other example of a database is Google. So what Google does, Google stores raw data about every single click that you ever make. So whatever you typed in the search engine, whatever you clicked, even the words that you misspelled, all those will be stored in Google. And also Google uses that to create useful information. And from that data that you type in the search engine, they'll be able to determine what ad to display to you. They will also be able to determine your frequent links. And anytime you type a certain word, say for example, if you're used to typing Seattle, so anytime you type the word, Google will provide to you the frequent links that you have been typing or visiting. And it will also correct the spelling or phrase for a mistyped search requests. We learned in our Excel part of this class that Excel contains proper data sets. And in that proper data set, it contains the field names in the first row, and it also contains the records in subsequent rows. And we also learned that in Excel, we use data analysis to create useful information from raw data to help make decisions. So we learned how to use the sum ifs, We learned how to sort, to filter, and also create pivot tables and Excel tables. And we saw how to create relationships, data models, and Power Query. In Access, it also contains proper table, which is a data set in Access. And it has field names in the first row. So in Access, we add the data type and field properties so that we will prevent bad raw data from entering into the table. And we will learn how to add the data type when we create our database and learn how to prevent bad data from entering into the table. In Access also, each record must have a unique identifier, which is the primary key. And this helps to prevent the duplicate records. And just like its name, it's unique. So for every record, it has to have a unique identifier. So the examples of a primary key or a unique identifier would be a student ID. So for example, here at Highline or in colleges or universities, every student have their own particular student ID, which is unique and it is only assigned to that particular student. For an invoice number, you will only have one invoice number for every single invoice, or a product ID, and this will be different from any other products that you will be selling. So data analysis in Access, we will use queries and reports. In Excel, we saw an example of queries in Power Query. But in Access, we will learn how to create the queries and reports. We will create relationships between tables so that we can create useful information from more than one table at a time. To determine if to use Access or Excel for raw data and create your useful information, here is what Access does. Access creates more robust data validation. And we can do that using the data types and field properties. We will also learn how to create the data validation. In Access, it's also easier to build relationships between tables. We can also build complex queries that can be easier to create in Access than in Excel. Queries automatically update when raw data changes, and we will see that when we create our database. If you have queries that you run often, then it may be easier to do that in Access rather than in Excel. In Excel, simple queries such as sorting, filtering, and pivot tables are easier to do in Excel. Data analysis can also be easier to do in Excel since most people know how to use Excel at least a little bit compared to knowing how to use Access database. Some data modeling done with Power Query and Excel's data model can be easier to accomplish than Access, and it can hold more data more efficiently than with Access. And if you will be advancing to Business 218 and BEI 348, then you will explore more of these topics in more details. So learning both Access and Excel is good since you will learn how to store data in Access and send the raw data to Excel as needed. So I will briefly show you an Excel workbook. Here's my Excel workbook, and here we have an example of a proper dataset. And as we have learned in the Excel part of this class, a proper dataset must have column headers, also known as field names. And this is in first row of your dataset. So the field name will tell the user what data goes in that particular column. So for example, the date here, the user will know only the date has to go in this particular column. And also for the region, only the region will go in this particular column, and so on. Each row after row with field names must have a transaction or a record. And for our example here, we can see we have a sales record in each row. So right here, you can see we have the column headers, and we also have different records in this table. And also for the proper data set, it must have empty cells around the data set. And as you can see right here, we have empty cells all around. In Excel, we can filter to see the sales records for a certain region. For example, if I were to filter and show only records for a particular region, come up there, get the filters, and I'll click on that arrow. And right now I can see I have all selected. So if I click that to unselect all, and if I click only the Northwest and click OK, that means the records that are showing here are only the sales record for Northwest. In Access, we will create a query where the question is, show me record sales for Northwest region. And we will learn how to create different queries in our upcoming videos. So I will clear this and I will select all to clear that. So before I give you an overview of an Access database, let's first go to our notes. I'm back here in our PowerPoint notes and I will advance to the next slide. And this is slide number 6. In this slide, we see 4 important objects in an Access database. We do have tables, and the tables in a database, this is the heart of any database. We also have forms, which is a user interface, and the forms allows you to view and maintain data. We also have queries, and this is where we will ask a question of the database. And from the queries also, we will create reports, and the reports will have useful information from our database. I will now open our stuffed animal database and I will show you the tables, the forms, the queries, and the reports. So here is our stuffed animals database, and this is provided to you in our class website. This here is the navigation pane, and we can see we have all the Access objects here. We have the tables, queries, forms, and reports. And if I expand this, you can see what tables we have here. You can see all the queries that we will create in our next upcoming videos. Here are the forms, and also here are the reports that we will create. You also have a different way to view the Access objects. So if you click on this arrow right here, right now we are viewing the navigation pane as object type, but we can also view that as tables and related views. So if I click on that, I can see I have the products table and all the related queries, reports, and forms for that particular table. And as I scroll down, you can see it's the same here for the supplier list table and the same here for the customer list table. So I will click on that arrow again and I will change that to object type. And now with the object type, you will view the tables all under one place, and then the queries, all these will be under the queries. The forms, every form that you create will be under the forms object. And for the reports, every report that you create will be under the reports object. I will open each of these tables so that we can see what data we have in each of these tables. And again, the tables are the heart of any database. To open a table, with that particular table selected, I can right click on that and click open, or I can double click on that and that will open for me the table. So right here, you can see we have the field names right there. And we can see this table contains our raw data. And also we can see that the raw data is stored in different pieces. You can see different pieces right here. We also see that we have different records here. And for each record, we see we have a unique identifier. And in our case here, this is the product ID. So for every single record here, or for every product, it has a unique identifier which is listed right there. We also see that the table name is listed up here on this tab, which is right here. To open a different table, we can open a different table and it will open in a different tab and also show right here. So if I click on the customer list and then right click and click open, I see now I have opened the customer list table and I can see the name is showing right here on this tab. And also we see that this one also have a unique identifier, which is the customer code. And in our case for this table, this is the primary key. And I can also open the supplier list table right there. So if I double click that, I'm opening, so 3 different tables are showing on the tabs up here. And I can see here on the supplier table, the supplier store here. If I double click this to enlarge this column, I can see I have the supplier store code here, which is the unique identifier for this particular table. So to close just the table and not the database, I will click on this X right here on that particular table that I would like to close. So if I click that there, that closes only that particular table. And if I come there and I click that, that closes only that particular table. So to close a table, you do not have to come to close the Access database here. So if you click close here, it will close the entire database. But if you only want to close the object that you have open, then you will come here on your tab and you will click the X button right there to close that. If you enter raw data into your table or into your forms, the Access will save that data automatically. But if you make any changes to your structure, so for example, like in our case here, we adjusted the size of this column, then we will have to save this because Access will not save this automatically for us. And if I close this here, Access is really polite and it asks me if I would like to save the changes that I made to the layout, and I will click yes. And once I click yes, Access will save that and close that table. So right here, we also have the queries, and we will create all these queries in our next videos. So if I click on any of these queries, I will click on the inventory value. I will double click to open that. I see right here still I have the product ID as the unique identifier. And then I have the quantity on hand, quantity sold, and then I calculated the inventory and the inventory value. I will show you this a little bit later in this video, how we calculated all these in Access. When I show you the different views that we have in Access. So to close this, I will click there to close the query, and then I will open up one of these forms. So I have the customer list form open right here. The form sits on top of the table, and we use that to look at our data. We can also use that to edit and enter raw data. And on this form here, this is the customer list form, and you also can see from here, it has included the products that this customer is buying from our store. So if I close this up here, I can also open the products form, and you can see this is the products form. And again, we do have different views, and I will show you when we look at the different views that we have in our Access database. I will close that there. And right here, we have the supplier list form, and you see on this supplier list form, we also have the products that we are buying from that particular supplier. So if I want to advance to the next supplier, I will click on this arrow right there to go to the next record. And right here, I can see I have the record of our next supplier and also the products that we are buying from that supplier. And I can click on the next record and I see the same thing for this supplier and the products that we are buying from this supplier. And when we are creating our database, we will see how to create these forms. So I will click that to close the supplier list form, and I will scroll down here because I would like to show you the reports. So I'm clicking on the gross profit report, and you can see the gross profit report here. We also have a query for the gross report. So we created this report from this query right there. So if I click on this query just to show you, you see we have the product description, the cost, sale price, gross per product, the quantity sold, and then the total gross per product. So I will close that and I will open the report for that query. And you can see it shows the same thing, but this now has been formatted as a report. So I will close that. And now that we have seen all the Access objects, I will switch back to our PowerPoint notes. And on our slide number 7, we have some of the differences between Access and other Microsoft programs. While in Access, you can only have one database open at a time. And to be able to view multiple databases, you can use the Windows Explorer to open another database while you have another one open. And I will show you how to do that when we go back to our Access database. Also, to save, when you enter raw data into database, Access saves that data automatically. So you will only have to use the save button only when you're creating or changing the structure of your tables, the forms, the queries, and the reports. And this is just like you saw when we changed the structure of our table, then we had to save whatever changes that we made. The undo and redo, This only works when you are working on a record before it is saved or before you move to the next record, or it works when you're creating or changing an object, that is the table, form, the query, or the report. On our last slide in our PowerPoint notes, we have 2 views for each object. And when we go back to our Access database, I will show you the different views. We do have the regular view. So for the table, we have the datasheet view. For the form, we have the form view. Query, we have the datasheet view. And the report, we have the print preview. And then we also have the design view, which is the underneath view. And the design view allows you to change all the structural elements in the object. And although some structural elements can be added or changed in regular view, design allows you to change all these elements. Now I will switch back to our stuffed animals database. So now I want to show you what we have learned from our notes. In Access database, to be able to view multiple database, you have to use the Windows Explorer and open a new Access database. So please do not click File to open the Backstage view and click Open to open a new database. So for example, if I click any database here, I will click this one here, Sunrise Health Clinic. So what that does, it closes the database that I had open and it opens this new database that I have clicked to open. So if I would like to open and view a new database while I still have this other one open, I will have to use the Windows Explorer. So to view multiple databases, you use the Windows Explorer. So I will click on the Windows Explorer. And here on my Access files, I will click the Stuffed Animals database. And now I have this database open. So now I have opened this Stuffed Animals database. And if I restore down, you can see right here, I have the Stuffed Animals database open. And I also have the Sunrise Health Clinic database open. So I will close the Sunrise Health Clinic database and I will maximize the Stuffed Animals database. So the other thing that I would like to show you is in Access, when you enter raw data into the database, Access will automatically save that for you. So for example, if I double click to open our products table, right here you can see on the chocolate teddy bear, the quantity on hand is 15. So if we change this, we do not have to save it because Access will save this automatically for us. So I will close that and I will make the changes from the form. So I will open the products form. And right here, if I make the changes to this quantity at hand, and I will change that to 20, and I will also change the sell price to 20. And now if I close this, I do not have to save it. I will just close that. And when I open the products table, I can see now the quantity on hand has changed to 20 and the price has changed to 20. So if you enter raw data, you do not have to save. Access will automatically save that for you. But if I close this and I make changes to any of these structures, so I'll open the customer list table and I would like to make the changes to the structure. So I will double click that so that I can show all the entire address there, and I will also double click that to see the zip code. So because I have made the changes to the structure, then I will have to manually save this. Access will not automatically save this for me. So if I attempt to close this table, Access will be so polite and it will ask me, do you want to save the changes to the layout of the table? And I will click yes to make the changes and close my table. The undo and redo also works differently in Access, as it only works when you make changes to a record before it is saved. And it also works when creating or changing an object. And so to illustrate that, I will open the products form. I will double click to open that. So if I tab and make changes on the quantity on hand, I'll change that to 15, change the sale price to 17, and change quantity sold to 10. So if I click the next record and I do not make any changes on this second record here, if I go back to the first record and I press Ctrl Z, I can see that I am able to undo the changes that I made on this record. But if I make the changes here, so for example, if I change the quantity sold to 10 and then go to the next record and change the quantity sold to 15 and then now go to the next record. So if I come back to the first record right here where I change the quantity sold to 10, if I Ctrl Z, I am not able to undo the changes on this first record, but I am able to undo on the second record because I have not made any changes on my third record right here. So when you're making changes to a form, if I click the next record and I make any changes here, I'm not able to come back and undo the changes that I made on the previous record. I will close the products form here and I would like to show you the different views for each object. So I will double click to open the products table, and right here this is the datasheet view, which is the regular view. So if you would like to see this in a different view, you come up here on your ribbon on the home tab and on the views group. If you click on the view button right there, you can see we have two different views. Right now we are in datasheet view. So if I click on the design view, I can see now the view has changed and I am in the design view. In the design view, this will allow you to make any changes. And from the design view too, this is where we will add our data type. We'll also add our validation rules here from the design view. And any changes that we make here, we have to save. This will not save automatically. We have to Ctrl S to save that. So when we create our database, we will add our data type from the design view and we will come and see that when we are creating our database. So I will close this, and it doesn't matter if I'm closing it in the design view or in the datasheet view. So if I close that and if I double click to open again, it will always open in the regular view or in the datasheet view. So I will close that, and now I will open any query right here. So I will open the inventory value, and you can see the same thing, it's opening in the datasheet view. So if I come up here and click on the view, I can see I have the datasheet view and I also have the design view. I will click on that and I can see right here I have the table that I used with all the fields showing. So I can make the changes by dragging this down there so I can see the entire fields right there. So right here, if you look at the inventory, if I double click to expand that, this is where we created our formula. And if I double click this again, I can see right here we also have a formula that we created. So we created the inventory field where we took the quantity sold and we subtracted that from the quantity on hand to get our inventory. And then for the inventory value, we got the inventory that we calculated here, and then we multiplied that by the costs. So I will close this and then I will open the form so we can see the different views that we have for the forms. But before I do that, because I made changes to this object or to the structure of this object, I adjusted the query grid right here by pulling this down. And I also adjusted the size so that I could see all these fields here. I will have to save this. Access will not save this for me automatically. So if I close that, Access is very polite and is asking me if I would like to save the changes. And I will click yes to save the changes and close that. So if I open the inventory value again, if I double click, it opens in the regular view or in the datasheet view. I will close that, and now I will open one of the forms here. I will open the products form. And right here, when I come to the forms, I can see I am in the form view. I also have the layout view right there. And from the layout view, I can make changes to my structure. I can adjust the sizes for this. So if I want to adjust the size here, I just click there and then reduce the size right there. I can reduce that size to the size that I would like it to be. And also, we also have the design view. So if I click on the design view, this is the form design view. And this view allows you to make changes to all the elements. So I will close this. And I don't want to save the changes that I made to the form, so I will click no. For the reports object, I will double click the gross profit report. And the report right here, it opens in the report view. And I can come up here and click on the view. And I can see here we have different views for the report. So the design view, this will allow you to change all the elements in your report, but we will not make any changes on the design view in our database. So I will go back to the view and I will click the layout view. So on this one, if you would like to make any changes, you can make the changes to your structure, and I can adjust the size for that. And once I adjust that, because this is a structural change that I have done to my object, I will Control S to save that. And now to see this report in a different view, you can see right now I'm in the page setup tab right here in my ribbon. I will click on the report layout design tab right there, and I can come back to my views button right there, and I will click on the print preview. And now I can be able to print my report if I want to do that. I have the print button here and I can click that to print. But since I don't want to print the report, to close the print preview, you use this button right here and you close the print preview. And now if I click back there, I can click the report view and I can see now I am back in the report view. So I will close this, and now we have reviewed the different views that we have for each object. And that now brings us to the end of this video. And in our next video, we will create the database, which is the stuffed animal database. And we will also create the tables and forms and also build relationships. So I will close this database. And in this video, we had our PowerPoint notes. And we covered what Access database is and what Access does for us. We saw the examples of databases, and we also learned that Access stores raw data and creates useful information from that data. We also learned the 4 important objects in an Access database, which is the tables, forms, queries, and reports. And we also saw the differences between Access and other Microsoft programs. And finally, we also learned and saw the different views for each object. So as I mentioned, on the next video, we will create the stuffed animal database. And so thank you, and I will see you in our next video.